Donald Trump was indicted on June 8th. We got a sense for the 37 charges against him on June 9th. And on June 13th, he was processed in court for the first time on federal charges relating to his retention of and failure to return classified documents sought by the U.S. government. We didn't really get a sense for what happened in the courtroom because communications were prohibited inside the building. But we did see Trump afterwards go to a cafe in Miami and interact with supporters there.
Food for everyone. Food for everyone.
We also saw him hold a rally in which he echoed many of the themes of the idea that he was being persecuted by the Justice Department in this case.
Don't forget, this persecution is being done by the same weaponized agencies.
And really what we got a sense for was that Trump intends to fight this not only in a court of law, but in the court of public opinion, where that could be the most important verdict given how long these court cases can last. There's little question from Donald Trump's first indictment that there can be something of a rallying effect after this happens. We saw the indictment in Manhattan. Since then, Donald Trump has expanded his lead in the Republican primary to more than 30 points. The question from there is, one, do Americans, including some Republicans, feel that these charges are more serious than the ones in Manhattan? And relatedly, do we see a backlash among the more general electorate? Do we see independents turn away from Trump in a way we haven't seen before? I think if you look at polling, you do see that people generally regard these charges as being more serious. About 6 in 10 or more Americans say that these charges are serious, including 4 in 10 Republicans. And we also see a situation in which many people, about half of Americans, say that they would not vote for Donald Trump if he is charged and convicted of a crime like this. And so much depends upon the court case that lies ahead. We could see him very well win the Republican nomination, even if he has indictments hanging over his head. But it does seem to be something that the American public, by and large, are concerned about. And we should emphasize that Donald Trump and his party have effectively lost the last 3 campaigns. And so anything that damages him further could prove to be very difficult for the party moving forward. What we saw after Trump's indictment was basically what we saw after the search of Mar-a-Lago back in August, which is that Republicans rather reflexively decided to support him. They decried the process.
That indictment and looking at the selective omissions of both fact and law.
If we don't believe that the DOJ is going to enforce the laws equally between the 2 political parties, that's even more serious than the charges themselves.
What we've seen since then, especially around Trump's court appearance, is that certain Republicans are starting to raise concerns about the gravity of the charges. They've talked about how if they're proven, it would be a really serious offense.
If even half of it is true, then he's toast.
Even some very conservative House members have indicated that they would not support Trump if he is ultimately convicted.
Would you feel comfortable with Donald Trump as president again?
Well, I would not feel comfortable with a convicted felon in the White House. So we'll see how the plays out.
So we start to see some cracks in the Republican defenses of Trump, but at the same time, the overwhelming focus has been on the process and about the idea that Donald Trump is being persecuted by the Justice Department. And we should expect that to be the overriding takeaway, at least until we start to get more details about how this case is going to proceed. There's no question that while the first indictment did not damage Trump politically, including the general election where he has remained competitive with Joe Biden in the early polling, there is something to be said for the multiple indictments that he now faces. The possible inclusion of an indictment in Fulton County, Georgia. There is still special counsel Jack Smith's investigation related to January 6th that could feasibly lead to some charges. And so I think what we've seen from certain Republicans, at least, is the idea that all of this hanging over Donald Trump and hanging over the party in 2024 is not an ideal set of circumstances. And so the choice for Republicans is, even if they do believe that this is a situation in which Donald Trump is being targeted, do they stand by him with the knowledge that this could ultimately hurt their efforts electorally speaking? And the more that we see these indictments pile up, the more that we see the actual evidence come out of these cases, that could be a very difficult question for the party moving forward.